Shalom.
Shalom.
I'm Nama Ru. This is Rabbi David Ru. And this is actually our 51st video talking about the Shmita year. Currently, we're in the Shmita of the year 5782 in the Holy Land, when Jewish people who are living here have to be careful to hopefully be eating the food of sanctity because the land is resting, and also be careful about how we conduct ourselves with food and agriculture and applying these laws today. Now, there are certain spiritual religious leaders who have helped translate and help the Jewish people carry out these laws. And there's some from long ago that interpret the Torah law, and then the Rabbinic interpretation and extra sort of guidelines that the rabbis give to help us conduct ourselves properly in our generations. And then there's contemporary Israel, where we have a mass of people, a critical mass of Jews back in Israel, a huge miracle after thousands of years. And it's part of our story as a people. And then there are the rabbis who led us in the most recent generations. You said the last 160 years is when this becomes really important to be able to, be the Jewish people in the Holy Land. We need to conduct ourselves properly in relationship with the land, which is also an extension of our relationship with our God.
Well, we ended with Rav Kook last time, who was a visionary of return, of national redemption. In a certain way, the Baal Shem Tov talked about, and the Hasidic movement talks about, individual redemption. And Rav Kook transferred all of that into national redemption. And he was talking about the nature of rest on Shmita, that if you violate all the rabbinic legislation, you're in fact negating the Shmita in its entirety, which is a Torah violation. And it is not most people think it's an original idea to Rav Kook. In fact, it's found in the Ramban's Perush on Chumash, written, say, about 800 years ago, probably in Eretz Israel, after he had to flee Spain. Relatively common occurrence of Jews having to leave different places. So on the pasuk in Vayikra, Deber al bnei Yisrael, Lomar, speak to the children of Israel, saying, B'chodesh hashvi b'echad l'chodesh, on the 7th month and the first day of the month, which we know as Rosh Hashanah, Yeh lechem Shabboson, it will be a day of rest for you. Zikron trua mikra kodesh, you will remember the blast of the shofar. It will be called holy. So I'm not going to do the entire Ramban on that pasuk. I'm going to do a selected. And if you see more on the YouTube thing, you'll be able to see it, what I'm reading from it. So the Ramban writes, ונראה, it appears to me, שהמדרש הזה, that this midrash that you just quoted, that I'm not quoting, we're having the intent of it here, לומר שנצטוינו מן התורה להיות לנו מנוחה ביום טוב, that the Torah has commanded us to have rest on Yom Tov. אפילו מדברים שאינן מלאכה, even from those things that aren't melacha.
Okay, rest during the Jewish holy days, even from things that aren't work.
Right. Lo shitrach kol hayom. You shouldn't be schlepping all day. Limdod tevua, to measure your grain. Velishkol haperos, to weigh the fruit. V'amatanos, and gifts. Lemleh achaviyos yain, to fill up barrels with wine. Velifnos הכלים, to empty vessels and prepare them for use. V'gam האבנים, מבית לבית וממקום, moving stones from one house to another, from one place to another. V'im haisa ir mukefes choma, and if it's a walled city, which there certainly in the Middle Ages were many of, v'daltos nu'ulos b'layla, and they closed the gates at night, which was the norm. You omsim ala chamorim, then they can load up their loads on their donkeys. V'af yain v'anavim v'ta'inim v'kol masa yaviu b'yom tov. They can have wine and grapes and figs and dates and whatever type of load they want to carry around on Yom Tov. V'yeh hashuk maleh l'kol mekach u'memkar. The marketplace can be open to all types of purchases and sales. V'tieh chanut petucha, the store can be open. Ve'achen v'ni makif, the storekeeper can keep his accounts. Ve'ashulchanim al shulchanam ve'azahuvim lifneim, and the money changers, the bankers, can be there with the cash sitting on their tables. V'yeh hapolim maskirim lemalachtan umaskirin atzman kachol, and the workers can, get work on those days for whatever things they would normally do. For all these things that we've mentioned and all other things like them. Vehutra yamim hatovim elu ve'afilu haShabbos atzma shebechol zeh ein behem shum melacha. And you would see that Yom Tovim and Shabbos would completely and totally be undone with these things, because there is no melacha at all involved in any of the things I mentioned.
So like measuring. You're not allowed to measure on Shabbos and Chag.
You're not allowed to cut to a specific size. You can measuring is only a rabbinic prohibition.
Okay.
So I can do all of these things, and that would be Yom Tov. So Yom Tov, or Shabbos for that matter, could be no different than any other day of the week. Ulechen amra Torah Shabboson. Therefore, the Torah says Shabboson. It's a Shabbos. Lishbos is to rest. It's a rest. Shei Yom Shvisa. It is a day of rest, menocha, and this is an emotional relaxation. Lo Yom Torech, not a day of schlep. By the way, Shvisa in modern Hebrew is a strike, right?
Wait, and by the way, schlep is Yiddish.
I can't
schlep.
translate.
A schlep means schlep.
You can't. There are certain words that cannot be translated from language to language. V'zei pirush tov v'yafe, and this is a good explanation of it. V'acher ken re'isi b'mechilta, and afterwards I saw in the Mechilta. This is a Tanaitic midrash on Shemos. The Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the one of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. There are several versions of the Mechilta. Sheshanu ba lashon acher. They teach the exact same thing in another way. Ein li elu melacha shechayvim al minachatas. I only know from reading Chumash that I'm not allowed to do those type of specific works that you would have to bring a carbon chatas if you did it. Melacha she'ein chayvim al minachatas b'nayin. How do I know about all other kinds of work that I don't have to bring a carbon chatas that I'm not allowed to do? She'ein olin be'ilan v'lo rochin al gabei behema. I can't climb a tree. I can't ride an animal. V'lo shatin al pnei hamayim. I can't take a boat across the water. V'lo maspikin, v'lo mitpachin. These are various types of musical types of things that could be done.
You don't make music on Shabbat.
You can't play an instrument or the drums or something like that. Talmud lomar, the Chumash says, kol melacha, any type of work. Not only the prohibited types of work, all types of work you're not supposed to do. V'hinei husru amalachas b'Shabbos. You should behold, we have been warned about doing all types of work on Shabbos, but lav, with a negative prohibition, v'onesh karis, and the penalty of excision, being cut off from the Jewish people if you do it accidentally, umisa, or death penalty if you do it intentionally with warning, v'trachim v'amal ba'asezei, and schlep and backbreaking labor is included within this.
What's the Hebrew word for schlep there?
Trachim, schleps.
Okay.
Ubiyom tov hamalacha b'lav, and on Yom Tov there's also prohibition ve'torech ba'aseh, and there's a positive mitzvah of resting that prohibits us from doing schlepping stuff.
Wait, schlepping is carrying, right?
Schlepping is doing any type of work.
Like when I say, I don't like the schmutz on the counter.
It's a schlep to clean it up.
And also,
it's
the
a
schmutz
schlep.
is dirt, but dirt is not the same thing as schmutz.
And schlep isn't carrying.
Okay. Even though carrying can be schlepping.
Yes, but it could also be that it's a schlep to clean this table.
This is our first language discussion in this video series.
And the prophet said about this in Yeshayahu, and in Eretz Yisrael, this is always part of the Kiddush. Some people say it, but very few. On Shabbos, you will refrain from going in your way. from finding your objects and speaking the way you speak. So everything you do on Shabbos is supposed to be different. That's what the Navi is saying. Don't behave the same way. You could. There's no prohibition per se of speaking the same way on Shabbos as you do on Yom Tov. But it's a waste of the day.
Or during the week. Speaking of Shabbos,
that's what I meant. I didn't mean on Yom Tov.
During a work week, right. You don't conduct yourself.
You don't sing the same things.
You don't carry yourself.
You can sing whatever music you want during the weekday. It's not necessarily a good idea because it absorbs, it affects your thoughts and so on. But on Shabbos, it's certainly prohibited to sing secular songs.
And we have our soul is different on Shabbat.
V'ken Shabbos Shabboson yeh la'aretz. And so too, he says during Shmita, it says it will be a sabbatical year for the land. Shabbos shel Menocha, the Shmita is a Sabbath of rest. Shelo yachrosh v'lo yavod osa klal. It's a time where you will not play and you will not work it at all. So that Ramban is saying the general Torah prohibition, we may not be able to punish you for it, but the general Torah prohibition includes all of these things. And one should be very careful about them because they affect, if we observe them properly, they affect who we are. They become part of our being. What we sing, what we say, what we do, it becomes part of our being and it naturally brings us closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's why it's Shabbos Shabboson yeh la'aretz. It's a sabbatical year to God, meaning you go to God when you keep the sabbatical year properly. You go to God when you keep Shabbos properly.
Okay, happy Shmita.